as we are going through the webinar today and our presenters are discussing different points, I would love it if you could enter your questions, comments, challenges within the Q&A area. We will leave some time at the end of today's presentation so that we've got the opportunity to address those as we go through. If you've got any other questions, don't hesitate, raise your hand. I'll address those individually as our presenters are going through. But now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our wonderful and illustrious group we have with us this afternoon. I will start with Christina Olsen. Christina actually heads up what we call our customer success area at Rallyware. Those are the people that make us famous with our clients out there. They do a great job of working with and for each and every one of our customers. And Christina also has had the good fortune of working inside of a direct selling company. So she knows the challenges, the pains, the joys of working with that volunteer workforce out there. And then we've got Dan O'Mara, our VP of Sales, who has worked with all kinds of direct selling companies across the world. And then last, certainly not least, John Lietsch. John is currently COO over at a company called Blue Canoe. But prior to that, if you look him up on LinkedIn, he has had multitudinous opportunities of working in both inside and with many, many direct selling companies. So welcome all three of you today. I can't wait to hear your insights in this centralized user experience that you're going to be speaking about. And I will let you take it away, Dan.
Excellent. Rich, thank you so much for the introduction. And John and Christina, thank you both very much for being on the call today. So one of the things that we want to do is kind of set this up a little bit in regards to how we're going to run this webinar is that, of course, we've got a great slide deck and we're going to share some great knowledge, but we've got a lot of knowledge on this call. And I think we're going to find a lot of great insights in the conversations that we're going to occur between us here on the call. So John and Christina, thank you both again for jumping on, and I'll kind of kick us off here when we start talking about technology pitfalls. And I'd definitely love to hear you guys' insights. But one of the things that we're really kind of taking a look at is this fragmented experience. We've got a lot of technology out there for the field, and at the same time, so we want to make sure that the experience is great, but at the same time, want to make sure that those technologies really kind of talk to each other. And we're seeing this as a big issue. Got off a call today with a company who said, hey, look, we're taking a step back from our technology because we need to simplify what we're putting out there. The field is saying, hey, look, this is way too much that we have going on here. So Christina, I'll toss it over to you. And then John, I'd love to hear your guys' points on this.
Sure. Go ahead, Christina.
I think, one of the things that we've seen fields struggle with is when the technologies fail to talk to each other. So that notion that I have to have 5 different apps and I have to open them all and I have to figure out how they fit together. That's one of the things that I think modern technology is giving us a way to solve for. And that's something that I think is really important when you're thinking about your field is how can you simplify their life? They don't have a lot of time. They don't want to think too hard about it because they're trying to think about the sales that they're making and the product and all those other things. We don't want to get technology in the way of that. So I guess that would be my sort of takeaway from it all.
Yeah. And I'd like to add this affects us all. How many of us have had, that moment where we say, where did Rich send me that information? Was it on email? Was it on IM? Was it on Facebook? Was it on, whatever? It wasn't on Tinder, I'll tell you that much. But in any, we're all going to struggle with these technologies, and that's no different for our sales forces, except that they're trying to make money. We're all just trying to do jobs or live our personal lives, but there's multiple technologies out there, and oftentimes they're not talking to each other. So this is a very real issue, especially when you consider that 90% of our distributors are low active or inactive. We don't have a lot of time to get them to engage. So why get them to engage just to figure out what to do? Let's get them engaged and doing things for every minute they have of the day.
Excellent, John. That's an excellent point. And, I think there's a lot that's really kind of pointing out to that. So, some of these, key kind of indicators of this desire to be easy, or, hey, look, they're not going to put as much effort into this. So, some of the statistics that we have up on the screen now, we're seeing revenue down by, $1 billion from 2019 to 2020. Although our distributor accounts have grown, and the revenue per distributor has kind of dropped down. So is that due to the fact that things are too complicated? Hopefully that's maybe some of this stuff will surface today in this conversation. And how does that translate here to increased market size and to increased revenue? So again, how can we take this information, use this in our strategy moving forward and making things just a little bit simpler? So Christina, John, I don't know if you have anything you want to add here, or if you want me to just go ahead and jump into the next one.
Let's just dive in, Dan.
All right.
Absolutely.
Okay. So moving forward, right? Like now what we're saying is, okay, what does this kind of experience, what can this look like? An integrated tools, brings things together. One of the things that we have seen here at Rallyware, and Christina, I know you want to jump in on this here in a minute, but, this concept of the more engaged users can become inside of technology, actually their performance does greatly increase. And if we can keep that simple, as you can see here, sales increased by, 370%. So Christina, I don't know if you want to add anything on that.
Yeah, we see over and over again when we look at our clients and we talk to different companies, we see that the more engagement we can have from users in the platform, whether that's completing a task or looking at incentive information or getting something that they can share with their client, their customers in terms of engaging with them in an email or, a Facebook post, like those people are ones that we see growing their businesses. And it's not that they're just growing their sales. We see that they're growing their recruiting, they're growing the number of contacts that they have, and all of those things create a cycle that allows them to connect with their customers and improve their sales. But they also are staying longer with the company because they're able to achieve their goals. And so that's really exciting for us to be able to see that.
Awesome. John, any insights?
No, I think that last point is extremely valuable when you say that they're staying longer with the company. If you think about it, our turnover rates, both for customers and distributors, are extremely high in our channel. And so anything we can do to get them to stick around would be phenomenal and certainly would pay dividends for us.
Absolutely. So one of the things I think we were really kind of looking at is that what are these platforms? What are these technologies that we're looking at, kind of lumping them into some general terms here to kind of help us look at where these gaps might be. And so we're going to see a lot of this today in learning and development, incentives and recognition, and marketing and prospecting tools. This is where, of course, we can start to really see these behaviors that we want to actually look to kind of impact and really drive. So this thought process behind this centralized user experience, I think, really comes from is that Rallyware, we've done a tremendous amount of data analysis over the years, and just seeing how much engagement has dropped off when you have to change platform to platform to platform. And so having this central user experience where you can keep all of this into one user experience, of course, keeps people in there and allows for them to stay engaged and drive more action for their business. So to kind of jump on that point a little bit, Christina, I'll toss it over to you to kind of talk about this behaviors.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I think one of the things that, as I've worked with a variety of different clients and I talk with my customer success managers on my team about what they're seeing with their clients, is the more that we can create a situation in which systems can talk to each other so that they are delivering the right message to the right person at the right time, the notion of using technology becomes easier to the consultant or the distributor. They have an opportunity to want to engage with the technology as opposed to feeling like there's a push-pull and they're working against it. I had a great conversation with one of my clients in which we were talking about how, you get up in the morning and you get your cup of coffee and you pick up your phone and you're looking at the things that show up there. And if we can serve the right message to that consultant kind of at the beginning of her day, and that could be a message that might be like she put in an order the night before, the system's updated, and she gets a message that says, "Great job. You just did a beautiful thing. You built your business, you made a new customer, you had some sales. Congratulations, keep going. Here's the next thing you need to do in order to keep building your business." So those are the things where this notion of crosstalk helps us put those things together.
I love it. Absolutely love it. I think there's a lot of data out there that shows, as we know, John Fleming's The Ultimate Gig book, and there's a tremendous amount of information in there. And, one of the things that they're really talking about is, you look at this gig work with, 60 million people operating in some sort of gig opportunity right now. 69% of them are in multiple gigs. So, how are we going to win that attention? I think really truly kind of boils down to the fact that we keep it simple for that distributor behavior. So, so again, we kind of focus on these three critical areas, field learning and development, incentives and recognition, and then of course, acquisition, customer retention, CRM in of itself. So, the question is, right, these are so critical. So much behavioral information is inside of this. And so can we bring these together to really kind of help share some insights with these other platforms, and really kind of go through that process. So, John, I want to toss it over to you. What kind of thoughts do you have on this whole thought process around, bringing this data from other applications kind of together?
Well, I'll tell you, it's one of the most challenging things we face in technology at any company, given now how much data is available and how much we have to protect that data. So a lot of that, presenting it in real time or near real time becomes a huge challenge. Also, because many companies are realizing that one system does not fit all. And so they're going to naturally have multiple systems. They're going to have a CRM and then a separate e-commerce system, maybe a separate backend for their distributors to calculate commissions. And so all these systems have expertise that aren't represented in one single system. And so bringing that data together and architecting it in a way that will make it easy for distributors to act on that information has become a challenge for any CIO, CTO out in the world, because we're no longer necessarily responsible for one single unit. Everything at a company runs on technology in one shape, form, or another. And so that responsibility has become significant. And ultimately, what we all want to do is make sure that the distributor has the information they need as quickly as possible so that they can just get on with the business of selling. So I think this is fantastic and a great challenge that can be solved by bringing that data together and then rendering the actionable items directly to the distributors.
Absolutely. Thanks, John. I really appreciate that. So, Christina, anything on this, or you want me?
Yeah, I would say that, John made this point about being able to act on the information, and that's the key. That is literally the crux of all of this. Is you can have great information in your independent systems, but if you don't have a way to pull it together and share it with the consultant or the distributor at the point in which they need to do something, they're going to miss an opportunity. And that's, again, I think I'm going to say this a lot of times. It's about delivering the right information at the right time to the right person. And that's the bit that allows the end user to act on the information that we, sort of can gather through these systems and give them.
Absolutely. So that being said, I think this is a great illustration that really kind of brings this thought process together. Really, you've got, from opportunity management, learning and development, incentives and recognition, being able to bring those together into a single user experience so we don't lose that engagement from platform to platform. But then also at the same time, using that data, John, you talked about from all these other platforms, be able to bring that data into that single platform and then use that information and use those cross-platform information to really kind of serve up that right activity at the right time to the right person. So, Christina, I know we've talked to so many use cases around this during, conversations, but what does this look like in the day-to-day life of a consultant? Yeah.
So I think, this is the thing where we get really to the crux of what makes this possible for the stylist. So, she logs into the platform and she completes a task that's about, getting started in her business. And we ask her a question that says, do you want to do this to make a little extra money? Or do you want to do this to build a big business? Well, we take the answer to that question and we look at it and we say, okay, now we know what we can serve her. We can send her some information about, extra things on adding someone to her team. We can tell her how to go look at the incentives and recognition programs and leaderboards or program pages and see how she's, succeeding in those things. We can send her a notification that says, you're $500 away from getting a raise in your paycheck. And then it loops into the CRM. So like beyond just training and learning something new and being rewarded for it, we can say, hey, you had a customer who bought this pot and it was a 4-quart pot. And now we've come out with a 6-quart pot. You should send them a note and tell them that there's a new addition to the line of this cookware, right? So all of those things are in there. And if we then take the analytics by looking at that, we can feed it back into the system and know again exactly what to do. And so you're going to start getting, the more you're interacting, the more personalized and the more unified your experience is going to become. And so the desire to lean into your business and to lean into the technology increases.
That's a lot, Christina. That's, but again, it's
a lot behind the scenes, right? Exactly. So like to the user, they're not experiencing that. They're just seeing a little pop-up that says, here's a thing to do. And they're not having to write the message in the CRM. It's presented to them and all they have to do is click off the people they want to send the message to. Like that's the power of technology when the data works together. Is you can take all that information and make what's under the hood be complex without making the end user's life complex.
Hey, Christina, one thing, and Dan, one thing I wanted to add there that you said, and I don't want anybody to lose sight of this, you talked about what we call micro and macro influencers. And you said, we're going to find out, do you want to work, 40, 50 hours a week at this business or just 10? Indirect selling, one of my pet peeves is we're trying to make that 10-hour person into a 50-hour $1 million producer, and they may never want to be that. So if we can just get them to be really good at those 10 hours they're willing to give us and work 9.99% of those hours selling something, we're going to hugely magnify their abilities because we're focused on what they want to give us and optimizing that time. Some of those 10-hour people will become 40 and 50, but the data suggests over time, again, 90% of them are never going to be that person. So what you just said there, Christina, is brilliant. It's something I focus on with technology and something that excites me about what you're doing with this centralized user experience, which is to give them that ability, to give them the ability to work at whatever level they want to give a direct seller and maximize, optimize that time, because that's where we're going to grow these direct selling companies.
And to your point, John, like sometimes people become accidental superstars, right? So like they don't know when they answer that first question that they want to work more than 10 hours. They're just thinking it's a little extra money on top of their job. But the data, again, if we start seeing that that person's recruited a few people or that person's sales are going way above what, a part-timer might do, we can trigger more training to them, more resources to them, more questions to them to kind of revisit with them. And so it becomes a coach. It becomes a friend that's just sort of nudging you along and supporting you and cheerleading for you. And so, that's the thing is like, we can, again, it goes back to this notion of serving the right content to the right person at the right time. If you are that accidental leader and you promote and you didn't even know you wanted to do that, we should remind you that you just promoted, and we should congratulate you that you just promoted on the comp plan and say like, hey, you did this. Do you need help, training a person? And let's give them that help. And they don't even have to ask for it. We can use the data to push it back into the system and keep that cycle going.
Christine, I'm jumping on this. This is one of my favorite topics, right? I think what you just I'm going to elaborate a little bit on what you just said when you said, do you need help training someone? Well, first of all, this accidental leader or, someone that's happened to, enroll a few people, like how did they keep engaging their team members? And, how are they, being alerted of their team's activity? How are they alerted of, hey, look, this person on your team, is this action or this amount of money away from this cool thing, and then at that point in time, have they been in that situation before? They say, oh, that's great. I didn't know that. But what am I supposed to do with that information? And, of course, apply the right learning in that situation. And then you take them through that whole thought process. And I think that's one of the things that we're seeing a lot with some of our customers is that thought process around really helping that new time leader build their team, but also, help them keep their team engaged. And a lot of times they just don't know about it, right? Like, Salesforce a long time ago came out with, right, don't download software, right? Or the cloud only. Well, kind of thought process here is that, do we have to give reports? Right. Reports are so important, right? And I don't know if we'll ever get away from them, but, people look at reports to identify things to do. Well, right. Can we just bypass that and help make it simpler and help provide those that don't really want to look at reports with just those next steps? And that can be for themselves or for their whole team.
Right. And that's a really interesting thing, Dan. Again, it goes back to how do we take in the information, not only from all the systems. So there's the systems of like, leads and sales and, back offices and genealogy. But then there's the like simple question that you might ask someone in the middle of their training. Like I mentioned, the first question you might ask, what kind of business you want to build, but like, asking someone to tell us how confident they're feeling about their business. And if somebody's feeling uber confident, we can give them a more complex sort of view of something. And someone who's not feeling as confident, we might give them some really gentle training information to help them build. Because they may have said, I want to build a big business, but as it turns out, they don't know how to do that. So we can sort of give them that information based on their responses to a question without making them feel like, nervous or anxious that I don't know how to do this. We actually just give them the right information again at the right time when they sort of have said, I'm raising my hand, but I don't know what to do. And technology helps when maybe you have a leader who's not present with you or, you're long distance from somebody. Technology can make you feel connected. So the one thing we haven't talked about in this is sort of that connection and how you can have, discussion forums and talk about things in your team and in the community of people that you're working with. And all of that is another piece of the pie when that information's in the same place where there's links to training or links to incentives. And that stuff is right in front of you, and you don't have to go somewhere else to get it, right? It's just inside the same platform, inside the same continuity of the experience.
Excellent. So great conversation on this slide. I think we need to move to the next one. All right. So that being said, as we know, we work with entrepreneurs, and one entrepreneur may say, "Hey, just tell me what to do." Another entrepreneur may say, "I know what's best for me," right? And that whole approach. So, Christina, maybe you can talk through this concept of unified, but really personalized user experience as a whole.
Yeah. So, I think this is a lot about, again, having the ability for us to use the data to say, someone promotes to being a leader and they get this little task that we've got an example about, how do great leaders inspire their team? Well, now they're going to get some really helpful information through the training aspect of it. And then they're going to get rewarded by getting a badge when they've gotten their team to hit a certain level. And it really answers these trainings or, learning and development, whatever language you want to apply to it. It's really meant to give a user what they need. And if what they're focused on is sort of the training aspect, they can have that. Or someone, is looking for those monthly reports. They like reports. They're going to go in, they're going to look, they're going to see, but giving them tools to help them inside the same application, be able to communicate with their team, because they're just one of those kinds of people who's doing a lot of communication. So that's another way. And I think this notion of external integrations and taking more data into the system, the more data we can bring in to connect these things, allows us to continue to make this user experience unified. And it's a really lovely way to tell people, we see you, we hear you, we know what you need. And that's kind of a great thing. Someone once said to me in a meeting in a direct sales conference is, anyone who goes unseen won't show up. This is a way to show up for those people so that they feel like they're being seen. And when you can use the data, you get to give the people the things they need when they need it.
Excellent. Excellent. Thanks so much. So I think one of the things that I, like about this is, again, going back to the simplicity standpoint is like, hey, look, am I going to get an activity? All right. Or maybe I just have like half a second and there's like this one thing I need to do, and then we need to be able to say, hey, look, we, when you're looking at this for an organization, can you relate to both aspects? It can't always be task driven, but it also, you need to have it. So you also have to get the ability to maybe bypass those and just go and do one thing and then, get out, and so by being able to have that is one of the things that we really kind of believe in, is this thought process of, trying to meet the users where they are at, where they're at in their journey, where they're at with their desire for technology, where they're at for, a level of a guided approach versus a non-guided approach. And so it's really one of the things that I think is really going to be an important topic coming up in the future. So, John, anything you want to kind of add here on this concept of a unified experience, and but then again, personalized, really?
This is nirvana, I think, for anybody in tech. For any of us who use Netflix or Hulu or Amazon, the days of rendering kind of a ubiquitous experience to everybody, the same experience to everybody, may be ending. And so the difficulty becomes, how do I differentiate what user needs what? So I think this is very powerful. And we're going to talk later about trends. And I think this is one of them. And we're seeing it already. People, through Facebook or through your own email, you're getting ads that are custom tailored to you. This is no different than that. We're just giving you powerful tools that are customized to how you use them, instead of customized to a general population. So this is the future. It's not easy, but it certainly is the way we're headed.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. So, I think that's, we got, going to open this up for some discussions, Rich.
So, thank you, all three of you, so much. I was looking at the time and thinking I might have to rein this in a little bit, but you're doing a great job on the clock. So we talked about a lot of things, and I'm going to start to weave in some of the comments I saw come across the Q&A too. So we'll start with insights. We'll start with predictions. So I'm gonna share an insight. Dan and I were fortunate enough to have a phone call with John Fleming earlier this week talking about Ultimate Gig. Dan shared some of those new data points that John and his team have come up with. But one of the intriguing things to me was that, as Dan shared, the percentage of people or the number of people who have multiple gigs. So if already we have a volunteer workforce out there in those distributors, already we're lucky to get a couple hours a week of their time, does that change our mindset at all, knowing that they're giving us 1/3 of their time for our direct selling opportunity, another third of their time what they're doing on Etsy, and another? Does that change our approach in how we're dealing with that workforce out there, that sales force?
Excellent, Rich. So I apologize, but was that a question? I think it's.
Hey, Rich, I'll chime in, Dan.
Yeah.
If that's all right. I think that goes to something I've spoken to John about this quite a bit. John Fleming. We had just recently published an article about Uberifying or Lyftifying the direct selling industry, which is this idea of if Uber or Lyft were like direct selling, those drivers would be spending a whole lot of time training and figuring out what to do and not a whole lot of time driving. And that's how it feels sometimes. So I think that's what we're heading to when we're talking about the gig economy and the limited amount of time that they give us. It's let's stop thinking that we know what it's going to take to make them successful. And let's figure out what those things are for that individual by individual, and give them those tasks to do. And so if I'm an Uber driver, I know how to drive my car, and that's fantastic. And now I'm just told where to go to pick somebody up. And then the rest is up to me. So I'm given very specific things to do. I don't have to figure out the technology. I don't have to learn how to drive the car or figure out what car to buy. Everything is ready for me to do. Obviously, there's some differences between that and selling the variety of products we sell in direct selling. But ultimately, that's what we want. We want to just make it so that you can get in and make some money, drive the car.
John, I think that's an excellent point. And, kind of going back to some of those statistics, they're saying 60 million people in gig opportunities, but only 6 million, in the direct selling. So huge opportunity gap there for us to really attack and go after. And I think one of the critical ways to do that is truly by simplifying and to your point, trying to make it as simple as possible and to earn that money actually. So excellent. Christina, any thoughts on this so far?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that it's definitely an insight, and I predict that we're going to get there, but this notion of, like on the previous screen where you're going to get the right content in front of you at the right time. So, if we have all the data in the right place, imagine, if you will, a leader is sitting on her sofa on the last day of the month, and she can look at her phone or her laptop or her iPad, and she can look at a report that gives her just the right information to know how she's performing and how her team is performing. So that if somebody needs a little nudge and they don't know that they're $100 away from promoting, that the system is going to be able to show her exactly what she needs to know and give her the next step to talk to that person and make sure that they know what they need to do. and she can congratulate the people who've already hit those benchmarks. And that, I think, is one of the things that's going to be really important and really exciting, that we are going to have that ability by having all the information and being able to integrate all the systems. We're going to be able to make that really simple for her. So she doesn't have to go sit in her office and look at 3 different applications and figure out how to do that communication. She can sit on the sofa with her family and occasionally look at her phone and feel confident that her business is going in the right direction.
So I'm going to ask you a question on that, because yes, I agree. So she doesn't have to look at 3 different systems. But even you, when you said she was sitting on the sofa, you were going to have her look at a report. Does she have to still figure out from that report what to do next?
No, then so that's what I was saying is like the report's going to be there and the system's going to prompt her to say, like, this person's within X number of dollars of promoting, send her a message, and it's just going to pop up and she's going to be able to send that message.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to clarify for the, and another clarification there, as we're looking at this, one of the questions was, so I'm going to work our Q&A in here, folks. One of the questions was, we talk a lot in this presentation about learning and training. Is it really necessary? So this, I guess it goes back to even what John said about the Uber driver. Should we be considering it learning and training, or is it just, as Christina said, that's that snippet of information I need to know and act on? How do you address that question, I guess?
I'll take a little.
Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, John. You go ahead.
All right. I for those of you that know me, I'm bald, so I'll use my most recent experience. When they had only hair products, and I was bald, obviously still am. But in any case, that question about, is it training? It's a powerful question, and I struggle with this, quite honestly, because I thought if you have hair, you can sell hair products, until I sat in a room full of ladies, about 120 of them, and some of them looked panicked that they didn't know how to treat dry hair, curly hair, all of these different types of hair types in different environments. And so it dawned on me at that moment that technology could certainly solve that problem. And we've tried with a hair quiz. That's probably somebody asking me a hair question right now on the phone. But in any case, that's the danger and power that we have with those things, is exactly figuring out how to make it easy. And that's training. And we have a tendency in direct selling as well to expand our product base. And so now we go from one product and they become really expert at that to now 4,000 SKUs. And now I'm really scared. And if we go back to the Uber model, all I got to do is drive the car. But in direct selling, we're expecting a lot more. So I do believe there's some training, maybe there's some simplification of our product portfolio. I know all of IT people on this call are probably jumping up and down going, yeah, listen to that guy, because we could use less SKUs probably. But in any case, that training for that particular thing becomes critical. And then, of course, you have technology. And I can tell you as a business-centric technologist, we absolutely must reduce the amount of technology we're giving our sellers, because we're giving them way too many things to do. And that's impossible. And we're training them on too many applications. And now they're spending way too much time figuring out the tech and not selling the product we want them to sell. So this one's, as you could probably tell, very, very close to my heart. I do believe we have a huge advantage in direct selling. One of the keys to selling successfully is trust and confidence. And we know that in-person close rates are 30 to 40% when you're actually in front of somebody. Online closing rates are 3 to 5%, even to this day. Abandon rates, even to this day, are over 80%, mobile and desktop across the globe. So the more we personalize the online experience, the more we can take direct selling and the power of direct selling, both online and allow them to speak to people, the better we're going to do as companies.
So I agree with you about too many tools, right? It's the next shiny object in the room. But I think the point we're trying to present in this centralized user experience is getting to a point where our distributors don't have to know how many different tools might be in the background.
Right.
Because what we're trying to do, as Christina said, is proactively tap her on the shoulder as she is sitting on the couch, and this is what you need to do, or this is who you need to recognize, and that type of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Rich. And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the reasons when we first spoke that excited me about the centralized user experience was, hey, now I've got a solution. If I've got 40 applications, I can bring them together, if I do need them all, under one roof and have it render that task. So you're absolutely correct. So in other words, there's a savior to that problem that we know exists. And eventually we can reduce those, but we're not going to be able to eliminate them. There will be a certain number, because there is no single technology that can service the needs of a company. So there are always going to be a multitude of applications. So there is a reduction, but ultimately, like you said, we are going to need somebody to collate all that information and then just give it to us, the distributors, in a way that we can use and benefit from it.
So before we get off of insights and predictions, team, I've got one other question that came in. And as we've been talking this afternoon, the question was, okay, as we help someone be successful, the company thinks they know, the distributor thinks that they know, where and when does the machine start making those better choices for both the company and the distributor?
That's a great question.
I can hear a pin drop with that one.
Yeah. I'll take the first initial stab at it. And then I think, I'm sure everyone's got some insights, but, I think a fantastic question. And I think it's one that we really don't really know the answer to yet, quite frankly. And I think there's levels of operation that need to kind of go into this. And I was going to save this actually for the best practice, so maybe we'll just kind of tee into that. But the idea there is to, I first start with the KPIs, right? Isolate what activities you want them to do to get to that from a baseline standpoint, and then iterate. But the idea of starting to use that historical data to help set some of those thought processes is absolutely critical. And I think it's one that, that there's great ways to do that. But again, we've got this wealth of knowledge that we have from years and years and years and years. I mean, we as in the direct selling industry and the companies themselves, large amount of data that we can really use to kind of help start learning from and building those kind of initial models for us to really look at, when does the machine kind of come in place?
All right. I'm going to, in respect to everybody's time, ask all three of you. We're going to go around the table here, and we're off of insights and predictions. We want to talk about how we can prepare the people listening on this call for upcoming market challenges, or changes. So if you are going to share one best practice from your experience in direct selling that you want people to remember as they leave today's call, I would like you to share that across the room today so that everybody can leave better educated and prepared for the future. Christina, how about I put you on the...
I think I would say don't make assumptions about your field. Ask some questions, and then be ready to iterate as technology is used and you find out that the things you thought they wanted or how they wanted it aren't right. And so the brilliant thing about having a unified technology product in your toolbox when that's the case is that you can have analysis that feeds back into the system that allows you to make that change really quick. And so hearing what your field has to say and internalizing it and being able to respond quickly is probably one of your best practices in the world.
I love that concept. I don't think we emphasize that enough today. The ability to iterate, right, on what you learn and to do it in an agile fashion, as our programming friends would tell us. John, what about you, sir? What best practice are you going to give as your parting shot today?
This is tough. Just one, and you can tell I'm pretty tired.
Yes, I know, John.
Yeah, you've really set me up here for a loss. Okay, so I'm going to tell you, because she's on the call as well, I'm going to tell you to go low. Lo Myrick has worked with me for a long time, and she's been instrumental in getting me to understand how technology services the end user. And so we call her Lo. That's her nickname. Her actual name's Lauren. She's going to hate me for saying that. But I think of it as listen and observe. And that's something we don't do. The world doesn't, especially technology. I know it feels like it's moving 1,000 miles a minute, but listen and observe. It's actually not moving that fast. So listen to your field, observe how they're using your technology, and that will help you, believe it or not, anticipate and better prepare. What we tend to do is we think we're going to miss the boat, and so we launch and run. And so I think it's best to just understand that technology feels like it's moving quickly, but it isn't really moving that fast. So listen, observe, and deliver better solutions to your field, like something like this, that will have a greater benefit for you in the long run.
See, both you and Christina have worked inside of direct selling companies, and we always sit inside that company and think we know what's best for the field. And both of you just gave great advice to everybody on this call, whether you're inside or outside of a company.
Right.
Mr. O'Mara, that leaves you for our ultimate best practice you want to share.
Yeah.
No pressure, Dan.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate it. I'm going to agree with Christina and John, of course, without a doubt. As they're going through and talking and stuff, and I haven't been on the inside. I've only been on the vendor side of things, and one of the things that I guess one of the best practices is really challenge your vendors. Challenge your vendors tremendously. There's so much information out there. Your vendors should be able to really come back to you and tell you, like, how impactful is this technology? So, I'm not saying Rallyware is the best at this. We're pretty good at it, but, we're still challenged by our customers. But I just say really, 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 really challenge your vendors, and really, I guess, put us on the spot to prove value. That's one of the best practices I would leave after Christina and John's excellent best practices.
That's very good, Dan. And I would say, I know there's a number of vendors listening on this too, and people out there inside of companies, those can sometimes be your best allies. They may not have sat on your side of the desk, but they have dealt with a lot more situations with a lot more companies than we have had to inside of a single company. So I'll give you my parting shot, and that would be nothing more than simplify, right? And I think that's really the essence of John talking about Uber, Christina saying iterate, us saying this centralized, one-stop shop. It's just how simple can we make it so they will want to come and want to stay. Hey, thanks all three of you for all of your words of wisdom, your participation today. We really, really appreciate it. If anybody has any questions out there on the call, don't hesitate to circle back with us at Rallyware. Rich@rallyware.com will get you a response. And you will receive a copy of this recording in the next few days. And if you've got anything else we can help you with or a direction we can steer you toward, we'll be happy to do that. So until next month and our next webinar, thank you all for your time and your attention. Take care.